Carlos Sainz, the new world champion, go one stage better than last year and win in Britain as well? Could last year's winner, Pentti Ricola, with the help of the new Ford Sierra Cosworth, repeat last year's success? And how would the change of route, the introduction of pace notes, alter the character of the rally? For 1990, the rallying fraternity returned here to Harrogate, and despite the fact that both the drivers and the manufacturers' championships had already been sewn up, the Lombard RAC attracted one of the best fields for many years. Not just in quantity, the quality was here as well. Unusually, for the last round of the World Championship, all the top teams were taking part, including the victorious Lanciers, who've been world champions for the last 4 years. But the rally was reduced to just 4 days, which meant, sadly, the loss of Wales, but there was no reduction in the all-important special stage miles, maintained at around 350. But this year, for the very first time, the drivers were allowed to use pace notes to warn them of the bends ahead. So at last, this rally has fallen into line with the rest of the world. Now, the action started with Sunday's traditional spectator stages in parks and stately homes from Yorkshire through the Midlands. Pentti Ricola, with his navigator Ronan McNamee, last year's winners, left the start line sharp at 8 a.m.
Ricola was still nursing a pulled shoulder muscle, a legacy of the San Remo rally, but he didn't let it affect his performance. He was in fine form. He wasn't quite sure about the car.
I haven't done any testing with the car, so it takes a while to understand what is going to happen next, but it's behaving very well.
Which is more than could be said for world champion Carlos Sainz on this, the very first stage at Harrogate. The Spaniard's description: slip, slip and slide on the treacherous surface in Rudding Park. A loss of 35 seconds, but he managed to claw some of it back later in the day. Juha Kankkunen kept his cool, not least through the water splash at the misty British Steel stage at Scunthorpe. In the four-wheel drive Lancia, he was fully occupied, keeping at bay fellow Finn Marco Alén, who joined the Subaru team after 15 years with Lancia. He was overnight leader ahead of Kankkunen. A loss of 35 seconds through this puncture for Ari Vatanen on the fourth stage at Rother Valley, and it wouldn't be his last. Top British driver, fourth at the overnight halt, Malcolm Wilson sustained light damage in his Sierra Cosworth. Kenneth Eriksson had minor bumps during the day and dropped down slightly to finish behind Sainz in 6th place. The first day is designed for spectators who turned out in force at the American Adventure theme park near Nottingham. Frenchman Didier Auriol couldn't see many of them as he tried to explain to Tony Mason.
This morning we have little problem with the ice cream.
Ice cream?
Yes. No, what is this?
The glass?
Yes, the glass, because...
A misted windscreen was the problem. Welshman David Llewellyn lost time through a misfire after the Scunthorpe water splash, but completed the day 15th overall. Second highest placed Briton, Russell Brooks, was just inside the top 10. Disaster though for Jimmy McRae. At Scunthorpe, just 2 hours after the start, he put the Sierra on its roof and himself out of the rally. His son Colin almost did the same, but he escaped with just bodywork damage.
You're going very well.
Well, yes, I try like crazy, I go all the time, limit, more than limit sometimes.
I said, if we could be in the sort of the top 6, 7, 8 in that area at the end of the first day, I'd be happy with that. So, yeah, we're quite pleased.
Gwyndaf Evans held on to Group N, but only just.
We had the differential collapse on stage 3, which cost us quite a bit of time, and I think the gearbox is gone now. So.
Oh, really?
Aye. So.
But you've got service time.
We've got service time, so hopefully the boys can put it together again.
But the worst was the British Steel section, special stage 3. As soon as we started, we lost intercom, and as you know, it was blanket fog. You couldn't see no more than 50 yards, and it was the only stage I didn't do recce last week. So everything was completely blind. I'm annoyed because we lost so much time there. But at least we've got through the first day. I think that was our main thing for today. And the fact that we're here and in one bit and we're still talking must be good.
Thanks, Derek.
So at the end of day one, it was very tight at the top, with Marco Alain just 3 seconds ahead of his old rival Juha Kankkunen, followed by Pentti Rikkala in the Ford and his teammate and top Englishman Malcolm Wilson. The only notable retirement had been another Ford driver and Scotland's big hope Jim McRae. But things were to change radically on day 2 when the cars took to the forest of North Yorkshire.
The cold half-light of dawn in the heart of the Yorkshire forests, and Marco Alain sets out to defend his overnight lead. But the conditions, particularly in Dalby, were treacherous, even for the four-wheel drive Subaru. It was a disaster for Alain. First he lost the lead, then retired with a blown turbo on the 12-mile Langdale stage. With the fastest time on the opening Boltby stage, Juha Kankkunen moved into the top place, but that wasn't to continue.
Well, the real rallying started this morning here in the Yorkshire Forest. It's freezing cold, it's raining, conditions are terrible, and he's playing havoc with the leaderboard. Juha Kankkunen took the lead, but now he's got big problems.
Now the brakes went about 1 mile from the start, and we had to come with handbrake, and then about 5 miles more, and the handbrake was gone also because it was overheating, so no brakes.
And those are the wrong stages for that to happen, very fast ones.
It is, and a lot of fast straights and junctions and things, but that's life.
Last year's winner, Pentti Rikkala, had set 2 fastest stage times. He felt he had a good chance for a repeat performance, until this spectacular exit from the rally on stage 16 at Cropton. These dramatic pictures were shot by Jeff Helm from Hull. Pentti believed something had broken on the left side of the Cosworth, causing it to spin and somersault on the straight. The Cosworth was wrecked, along with his chances of a consecutive win and the immediate prospect of any new contract to replace the expiring one with Ford. With the other Cosworth of Malcolm Wilson, things were going only slightly better.
Langdale with a very, very high speed spin, sort of 100 mile an hour, and the car spun twice on the straight piece of road. The road conditions are incredible.
You didn't hit anything then?
Fortunately, we didn't hit anything, no, but we've had a very slow time on the last one. I don't know what the problem is. We're changing the rear dampers, etc. But it's very, very rough as well on the last 2, and I just don't want to destroy the car, because it'd be very, very easy to destroy the car, to be honest.
Flat right, 100 over crest, easy left, 80, easy right over bump, 50, right max long over crest, danger, K right.
3 consecutive fastest times gave Kenneth Eriksson the lead, in spite of a damaged windscreen after hitting a pheasant. But after 5 stages as leader, he was overtaken by Spaniard Carlos Sainz. He finished the day just 5 seconds ahead of Kankkunen. Timo Salonen's Mazda had spun twice on Ingleby, but his second run through Dalby was a minute faster as the stage gradually dried out. Towards the end of the day, Mats Jonsson had to replace the prop shaft on his Toyota, but he stayed well within the top 10. Russell Brooks had climbed up to 6th, but a broken steering arm meant he took over an hour to get through the Gale Rig stage, the 3rd he'd completed with the arm held together by a tow rope. He ended up far down the field. An early departure for Hannu Mikkola, retiring the Mazda before the full light of day.
Head gasket went, we were using quite a lot of water already from the morning, and so we could see it happening.
So what happens to you now?
Well, I think I like to change the scenery to the Florida sunshine.
Ari Vatanen continued to be plagued by punctures, losing time which dropped him from 8th to just inside the top 20. Breathing fire, Frenchman Didier Auriol carved away at the Yorkshire forests to climb from 12th to 8th by the overnight halt. And in another Lancia Integrale, Italian Mickey Biasion's trailing Sumpgard dragged its way through Dalby. David Llewellyn in the Toyota had other problems on his mind.
I'm a little bit concerned that the car is a little bit overgeared. We've got these latest tyres from Pirelli and they're higher in profile, and the car just isn't pulling top speed, so we're going to borrow a gearbox from TTE and put that in because it's got lower gear in. But we didn't have a very nice experience in that last stage. We caught the car in front of us, and it was, well, we were behind him for a couple of miles, and he obviously hadn't seen us, and on this very long straight he got all out of phase on a couple of bumps and he rolled over in front of us.
How long is it going to take, this job changing?
Change gearbox 10 minutes. So
Not too bad.
no, it's not too bad. Well practiced.
Colin McRae moved from 17th to 10th while continuing to alter the bodywork of his Cosworth. Alex Fiorio in another four-wheel drive Cosworth found Yorkshire to be hard work.
It's very hard, very muddy, very slippery, and especially very fast. I think too much fast.
Gwyndaf Evans ended the day dominating Group N after the demise of Tommy Mäkinen, who'd been hard on his tail. While Formula One driver Derek Warwick got to grips with his new surroundings, forests and the Subaru rally car. Graham Middleton withdrew his Cosworth on a road section, brought to a halt by overheating problems and a blown exhaust. And displaying the signs of battle, Paul Franklin took his Peugeot to an impressive 18th overall. And sideswipes had left their mark on British national champion John Weatherly's Mazda on his way to retirement with a broken drive shaft. In rallying, many so-called essentials are dispensed with. In John Morton's case, 3 wheels will at least get you to the end of the stage, and unfortunately for him, out of the rally. Getting the most from his Nova without the benefit of four-wheel drive or a turbo, Dave Metcalf got to the end of the day rounding off the top 20. Leading lady Louise Aiken-Walker had a whole list of complaints.
Just the mud and the holes, and the four-wheel drives just gouge out all the stones and leave it for us two-wheel drive cars to run over.
So you're struggling a bit?
Yeah, we are a bit. We had a drive shaft go in one stage, and thankfully we got out because, you know, driving on one wheel is a lot of strain, and we managed to get out and the boys changed it. We dropped some time, and it's just really keeping on the road. It's unbelievable out there. It's worse than snow, I think.
And there's nothing worse for a cameraman than Terry Cabey. He continued to produce remarkable results from the diminutive Daihatsu. At the close of play, Kankkunen was content with second place, just 5 seconds behind Sainz after a day enhanced by pace notes.
It is a little faster. It's, let's say, quite a lot of faster on the fast parts, but not so much faster on the slow corners, of course, and those, but it's safer still. It's a lot safer still with pace notes.
And now you're just a few seconds behind Carlos, so we look as though we'll have a good race tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow is Kilda Forest, so we will see what happens there then.
But even before Kilda, this rally was already showing its toughness. During day 2, no less than half a dozen major competitors, including 3 former winners, had fallen by the wayside. That left Sainz just 5 seconds ahead of Kankkunen, with Ericsson still well in touch at number 3 and Malcolm Wilson now a minute and a half adrift at number 5. Further down the field, Radio Times Rally Quest winner Will Brown was giving a very resolute performance by climbing to 83rd out of the 129 cars still in the field. So to day 3, and for Will Brown, his first taste of the terrors of Kilda. He was in good company alongside such other new boys as Biasion, Oriol and Warwick.
The Kilda Forest was waiting, and so were enormous crowds. Forestry Commission car parks were full 9 hours before the first rally cars arrived. But for the crews, there was first of all an early morning dip on the 16.5-mile Hamsterley stage. Carlos Sainz maintained his lead, but only seconds kept him ahead of Juha Kankkunen. Malcolm Wilson had had his problems, but he was still just a minute and a half behind the leader. Kilda also eliminated Timo Salonen, crashing out on the 20-mile-long Pundershaw stage. So Kilda had lived up to its reputation, but what was it like for those attempting it for the very first time? Drivers like Mickey Biasion relived his experience to Tony Mason.
it's never finished. You start and you never know when to arrive at the end of the stage. No, it's very, very difficult, very, very, very fast.
I don't like it. It's too fast. Okay, now we have. I think we have the note, and it's sometimes six gear, long time with a little crest. And if you put the car a little too much on the right or outside the crest, little on the left, which means it's impossible to keep the car on the road.
It is extremely slippy, and you've only got to just go a foot off the side of the road, and you're in a ditch, and you're stuck there. But yeah, the last few days it's been absolutely treacherous.
And Will wasn't helped by the loss of second gear for a whole stage. The new gearbox was quickly fitted by his service crew.
What did you think of your first visit to the Kielder Forest in Anger?
Well, I don't want to go back there again, let's put it that way. Is that Kielder or have we got some more?
No, I've got news, you're going back into
yeah,
it.
I know. No, it's very slippery, that's the problem. Very slippery. And we lost a lot of time there because we lost a little bit of confidence. With this sort of surface, when you're going through the corners, you just got to keep the pedal to the floor. And for me, it's very difficult. I'm still trying to feed the car in and come on and off the throttle. But as soon as you come off the throttle on a four-wheel drive car, you lose all the grip.
The Cosworth of Colin McRae was bruised and battered after Kielder. He admitted it looked like a shed, but still drove well, and he was 7th overall. Lying 8th, Armin Schwartz just couldn't get the necessary traction, even with four-wheel drive. Just behind him, David Llewellyn in another Toyota had lost 3 minutes, having to stop and change a wheel after a puncture. Kielder and what he called its mud porridge also claimed Ari Vatanen. But Belgian Robert Drugmans held on, although a little precariously at times. Gwyndaf Evans, one of 8 British drivers in the top 20, had eased off the pace with a commanding lead in Group N. A cautious approach to the water for Suzuki Oba in the Mitsubishi Galant, 17th overall. Steve Smith was the leading amateur entry. His Lancia was 21st. Dave Metcalf continued to leave his mark, not to mention his back bumper, on the leaderboard. 22-year-old Robbie Head in the Honda Civic had had a superb drive. He'd climbed into the top 20, but very nearly threw it all away here in Craik in the Scottish Borders. But in rallying, everyone lends a hand, particularly when a Scot comes to grief on home ground. Valuable minutes are being lost, but the combined effort gets Robbie and co-driver Campbell Roy back on the road. And they acknowledge the willing muscle power. Further down the field, the competition was just as intense. And this is the World Champions view of the stage. The rally returned to Kielder for the last 2 stages of the day. But once again, the notorious Forest Complex was to prove to be the sting in the tail for the rally leaders. As Tony Mason caught up with them at the end, the strain was showing.
What's the problem, Carlos?
Run tires.
On that stage?
Last stage, and in the other we have a puncture and we went off a little bit and we have lost many times now.
Oh, well, you've made it. You're in the lead again.
just few seconds, but let's say by luck, because I had the problem in the same stage. I hit the stone and broke the rear shock absorber and actually the rear hub, so I lost the back wheel. But luckily we didn't lose. We lost some time, but Carlos lost also, so it was equal.
You lost the back wheel completely, you mean?
It went in, you know, the shock absorber, the hub broke and the shock absorber left, so it went in and was touching all the time there.
So it was as hard as ever in Kielder.
Yeah, it is usual.
So at the end of the third day, the crews came wearily out of the Kielder Forest for the overnight stop in Newcastle. Kankkunen was now just 24 seconds ahead of Sainz, but 2.5 minutes clear of Ericsson at number 3. Sadly, Malcolm Wilson, who had been running 5th, lost a wheel and then a cam belt in Pundershaw and was out of the rally, as indeed was Derek Warwick, who'd fallen off the road in Kielder, as so many drivers do, but Derek happened to choose a place where there weren't enough spectators to push him back onto the track, so it was the end of a very impressive run. So on to the 4th and final day with no let-up in the pace, it was back to Kielder again.
The final leg of the rally began with Kankkunen leading by 24 seconds. He had victory within his grasp. Only 10 stages lay between him and a repeat of his win in 1987. Behind him, Sainz was a far from happy man. He knew he had to give everything to topple the Finn, but it seemed an impossible task. At the service halt at Newcastleton, they spoke to Tony Mason.
Are you enjoying the conditions this morning, Carlos?
Not really, it's icy.
Yes, but you're doing well. You caught up now about 10 or 11 seconds on Juha Kankkunen.
Yeah, but it was not so nice to drive on the ice.
Carlos, I think, has caught you a little bit.
Yeah, Carlos has been quite fast. I mean, I took front tires to last one and lost a bit of time and spun in one corner, which one was icy, so... But we will see.
Minutes later, the issue was settled. Kankkunen came to grief on the first bend of the Newcastleton stage, victim of the treacherous icy tracks. The disappointment was impossible to hide. The chance of victory had been snatched from him. The leadership seemed to be settled, but in second place, Kenneth Eriksson felt there was still everything to go for, and he went for it. Only 1 minute 42 seconds kept him from the winner's laurels. In third place, a remarkable achievement in his first attempt at the Lombard RAC, Mickey Biassion was delighted. Scotsman Colin McRae is no stranger to problems. This was just one of a whole series which had left the Cosworth showing distinct signs of wear.
Here in Newcastleton, Colin McRae's mechanics are working furiously to change the drive shafts on the Sierra, but it's only one of a number of problems that the young Scot has experienced on the first 2 stages this morning.
Went out the first service towards the first stage this morning and we'd only had rear wheel drive, so we had to come back to the service. The gearbox was broken, we put another gearbox in, went into the stage, then it jammed in 4th gear, and then halfway through the stage the engine started misfiring, so it dropped quite a bit of time.
Despite all of that, his 6th place was the best British result since his father Jimmy finished 3rd in 1987. An 8th place made David Llewellyn the only other British driver in the top 10. He just couldn't understand how the leaders had managed to go so fast. He felt he'd been putting everything into it. Just outside the top 10, but with a superb win of Group N in his Cosworth, Gwyndaf Evans. And the world's ladies champion, Louise Aiken-Walker, did well to capture 17th position in spite of being overpowered by the 4-wheel drive cars at the head of the field.
Most of the media attention is focused on the stars at the head of the field, but the backbone of the event is the 100 or more clubmen, many of whom scrimp and save to come on the rally. And would you believe it, that some of the service crews enjoy it so much that they actually pay their own expenses to come on the trip.
The Class 1 winner was Graham Hewitt from North Wales, attempting the Lombard RAC for the very first time. Tony Shields took Class 2, an improvement on his 1988 attempt in the rally when he failed to finish. Top amateur was Steve Smith, his 20th overall against the might of the works teams and the cream of the world's competition was a superb achievement. And in his first major rally, Radio Times Rally Quest winner Will Brown halved his start number to finish 75th overall. Bringing up the rear and the honour of last place at number 94, husband and wife team Barry and Fiona Griffiths in the cheapest British rally car, a 1983 MG Metro. As the cars left the final stage in the Lake District, Tony Mason was waiting to speak to the 1990 winner.
Well, congratulations, Carlos, eh?
Thank you very much.
How hard has it been?
I think everybody has seen how hard, very, very difficult rally for sure. You have to be also lucky sometimes, and this morning you was a little bit unlucky. But you cannot forget yesterday Killer and all these stages. The rally has been completely difficult, and the accident that has been in the rally, I think, proves that has been difficult rally. I like the rally, and I'm happy to win here. Last year was very, very unlucky, and I think the rally has been good for me after last year.
So to win the World Championship and then this on top, the absolute perfect year.
Yeah, I cannot complain for sure.
So after 4 days and 41 special stages, driven at absolutely breakneck speed, here's the final leaderboard. Carlos Sainz, the world champion, less than 2 minutes ahead of Kenneth Eriksson, with Mickey Biasson, last year's world champion, lying third. And the leaderboard really tells the whole story of the battles for this year's championships, with 2 Toyotas and 2 Lancias in the top 5, with Mitsubishi beginning to get in on the act. And it says a great deal, really, for the powerful attraction of this event. In the last stage of the World Rally Championship, we have no less than 7 different nationalities in the top 10. 2 of them, thank heaven, being a Welshman and a Scot.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winners of the 1990 Lombard RAC Rally, Carlos Sainz and Louis Moyer.
So here's Carlos and his co-driver Louis Moyer, no doubt getting even more from this moment because they came so very close last year. And I must say it's great to have seen them coming over here to compete in this rally, despite the fact they had the World Rally Championship very much in the bag. So let's repay that tribute, in part at least, and leave you tonight with just a glimpse of his very considerable driving skills from the unique view given by our Top Gear in-car camera. Good night.